today's episode in Hills with Keni Silva. Today we're going to be discussing one of the problems that affects 28 million people in the United States, and a lot of times this is not even diagnosed eating disorder. And today I'm going to have Danny Falco from NEDA, National Eating Disorder Association, that's in charge, a leading organization supporting individuals and their families in their journeys. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you so much, and it's an honor to be here with you, Keni, today. And I just want to say thank you for having me, and NEDA also appreciates it as well.
Thank you. You know, first, let's talk about eating disorder. I think a lot of people don't realize that eating disorder is actually a mental health condition.
Oh, absolutely. So there are, and they're very complex eating disorders. So there are multiple different things that kind of come into play that kind of make up the general umbrella almost of an eating disorder. So there are different mental illnesses that come into play and different behaviors, and there are all different kinds of eating disorders. Eating disorders, I mean, we discover new ones every single day, and they're all different. Everybody's different. So
why do you think it's so hard to diagnose an eating disorder? I mean,
yes.
I'm first personally, when I've heard of this thing, I'm like, wait a minute, eating disorder, like people anorexic or they binge or bulimia, like, how is this even a disorder? Why it affects a mental thing? This is like, you know, like to me, I didn't even look at it seriously because it's something, food for me is such a not important thing. It's just a part of, you know, being alive.
Of course.
But then when I start doing a little research and I realize there's 10,000 deaths every year from eating disorder, and it actually exceeds the amount of deaths from cancer, I was shocked, and I realized, like, wow, this is a serious problem.
Yeah, it's the second most lethal mental illness. It comes just in second to opioid addiction, actually, in the United States. Yeah.
And what do you think it associates with that it becomes a mental illness, not just, you know, like, you know, binging, like a lot of people don't eat and then they go and, you know, like start eating all these little things. Like, why is this actually a mental disorder? How does it affect the brain or how you look at things?
Of course. So eating disorders are very complex. They are made up of, you know, biological differences. As far as when it comes to eating disorders, the main thing is that there is no specific gender, there's no specific orientation. It doesn't matter if you're rich, you're born poor. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. Eating disorders affect everybody, and it's pretty insane because statistics show, like, if there's two of us here, one of us would have an eating disorder. Well, if we both had an eating disorder, one of us would actually have a substance abuse problem as well. So it pairs into substance abuse as well. And then as far as, sorry, to go back to your question, as far as eating disorders, they're genetic as well. So
I didn't know that, because I always thought that eating disorder comes from not having control over in your life. So at least something you can control is food, and that's how you develop that obsessiveness over what you eat, because you want to control something you can.
Yeah, well, it is part of it. However, it actually is almost like, I compare it to addiction a lot, because it's kind of like someone is born with the addictive genes, right? And then one person could try a drug and get addicted to it, and another person could try it and not be addicted to it. It's the same thing with eating disorders. So we are born with this chemical imbalance that, like I said, it could be genetic. Like for me, both of my parents actually struggle with disordered eating. So I got the lucky genes, and I also struggle with it too. But that's the beauty in it too, because I genuinely broke generational curses, you know, so it's pretty cool.
Well, that's another story, because I know you have a personal story of yours, and I know for a lot of people that actually the hardest part is to actually get out of it,
Oh,
because it feels
so
like an
good.
endless battle. And I guess I know so many people that are affected or struggled, especially when they were younger. And actually, by the way, why is it mostly, it looks to me like it's affecting the teens,
And-
or this is when it starts
Yes.
affecting the teens?
No, it does. And I think the reason why it seems to affect teens the most is because hormones are, raging at that time. There's so much change in a teenager's life. Like if you think about the change that they're going through and going into high school, there's a lot of changes. So that is when they usually are triggered. And different traumatic events, stress, there's all different things that could trigger an eating disorder. But like for me, personally, I grew up in the industry. I grew up acting. My parents had me acting at 5 years old. So in multiple languages too. So I have always been like in the public's eye when it comes to, or I was always viewed differently, like being compared to other kids. Like they knew, that I was doing this TV show or I was doing this, and I was constantly compared. So that was really difficult for me with the eating disorder, because when I was 18 years old, hold on, I'll back up a little bit for you.
Like, when is the first time you
Yes.
realize you have a relationship with food that you're not proud of or happy
Yeah.
with?
So the funny thing about eating disorders is that sometimes you hide them so well that you don't even know you're struggling with one. And the big part of it too is lack of knowledge, right? So what society has painted for us is that, people that struggle with eating disorders, are all very thin, white, young women. And it couldn't be more different than the truth, believe it or not. Actually, 6.6 million of those Americans that struggle with eating disorders are actually men. And
Oh.
believe it or not, I know. And research actually shows that the increase in eating disorders is on the rise with men and women of color. Yes.
Do you think it's because they don't know how to be vulnerable and ask for help? Because
Absolutely.
A lot of things I feel like the eating disorder is something people hide because they feel that's a hiding thing in general, right? Like
Absolutely.
everything they do, either binge or they throw up, they do it in privacy. So it's not something.
Well, then you get people like me, right, who have very complex eating disorders, and
What is a complex
Oh,
eating
complex?
disorder? Okay, I
Oh,
want to
yes.
know,
Okay,
like, because
so-
I know
yeah.
like certain things
So-
like bulimia or binging, or
it's almost like a combination of a bunch. It's
okay,
multiple
got it.
going
So
on
you
at
try
once.
different
Yes.
things.
So
Okay.
with me, what triggered my eating disorder was the pressure of fame and being in the public's eye.
So
at
you
a
wanted
teenage.
to look good.
I wanted to look fantastic.
Okay.
I was put in a boy band. I was just recently signed into a independent record label. I was placed in a boy band. My first show was, at the Hard Rock Cafe. I was so excited. And that was actually the first time I ever used a behavior, which was purging, actually. And I didn't know that's what was going on. I thought I was nervous. And I thought that I was so stressed out. And I thought that I was, sick, that I ate something bad. And, I went to the bathroom and, I ended up, being sick. And my bandmates' parents were like, "What's wrong? Like, what's going on?" And they went and they got me, all these antacid medications. And as soon as I made myself sick, I felt better, and I felt like everything was fine. And so that's where the mental illness kind of comes in. How I can describe it to you, in my worst, like when I was struggling in my worst, it's almost like an impulsive voice in your head that it's like, like fight or flight. Like it's like an emergency, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you hear it over, I'm gonna be sick, I'm gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you have to go to the bathroom. And it goes over and over until you act on that behavior, and then it goes right away. Emergency, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you hear it over, I'm gonna be sick, I'm gonna be sick, you're gonna be sick, you have to go to the bathroom. And it goes over and over until you act on that behavior, and then it goes right away.
But you actually never been like, like I don't want to say the word fat.
In a larger
but
body?
In a larger body that
Well,
you
I've been
wanted to be thin. Because I know a lot of people who experienced that were called ugly or, you know, something body shaming. That's when they start doing this thing. But you were always looking good at just something, I guess,
Yes.
maybe developed that you were afraid.
And that's why I guess I'm a great example of the mental part of the disorder, I guess I would say, of eating disorders. I'm a good example of it because I went from restricting, because that's the main behavior.
But yes, the beginning,
Yes.
everybody restricts. It looks like first everybody restricts until they get underweight, and then.
Well, did you know this? This is a
What?
crazy fact. Did you know that it's only 6% of the population that struggle with eating disorders are medically deemed underweight?
Oh, I didn't know
Yes.
that, because I thought the way it starts, first they starve themselves to the point where maybe that's the cases that actually the doctors diagnosed. Once they're already at that survival rate,
Well,
when they're about to die, then the next thing kicks in. They're like, okay, now you need to eat, and now these patients are so afraid to eat because they're afraid to go back to the original stage.
Yeah, no, it's very complex and very interesting how eating disorders are and how they develop over time, you know, and just society and the pressure of social media and
Yes.
of, you know, just, you know, you could go viral for just anything nowadays. And in today's times, you know, it is really difficult. And my advice for people that struggle with eating disorders or disordered eating or, you know, body image, anything to do with insecurities with their body or how they look, I would definitely monitor social media and really take a step back and just focus on the now, you know, and
Do you think it's also because, I mean, I grew up in Moscow in Russia. I didn't even have all that variety of foods. Like the food was something that, like, hey, like I remember bananas, we would stand in line and, you know, just to get that, it was more of, you know, like a luxury thing. And now, because everything is out there. So you experiment with food and you look at it different and you
Absolutely.
indulge into things too much.
yeah.
You know?
Well, so with my eating disorder and how I keep saying, oh, a complex eating disorder. Like, so for example, mine was, I struggled with anorexia is what it would say, you know, like on paper for the doctors, that I struggled with the anorexia, but I also was stuck in this behavior chain that I would restrict all day and wouldn't eat until about 11 o'clock at night. And then I would binge, and then I would go to bed. And about an hour, 2 hours in the middle of the night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up and I would be like, oh my gosh. And I would be in so much pain because, you know, there are a lot of health effects that do come from eating disorders, you know. Obviously, one of the main things that people notice that someone's struggling with an eating disorder, a telltale sign, definitely is fluctuation in weight, but there's all sorts of damage that it can do to your organs. And, you know, when, like with someone like me, I also struggled with, after I would binge, I would go to bed, I would wake up, and I would make myself sick because I felt like that was the only thing I could do, because I had all this uncomfort in my stomach and in my chest, and I have all this scarring in my chest from the bulimia. And, you know, the only thing that I could think in that time to make myself feel better was to get whatever was in me out of me so I could go back to bed and live my life. And so I did that every day, and that was my life for almost 10 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so how old were you when you realized I mean, obviously you
Yeah.
didn't know you had this, but how
Of
old were
course.
you when you first?
So my parents hospitalized me for the first time when I was 7 years old for malnutrition.
7 years old?
Yes, 7
I
years
didn't even
old.
know that's possible that a
Of
child that's
course.
7 can do some, because
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what's so
es-
interesting is I
especially-
was born with it, you know?
especially as an adult, and I have 2 kids, like I would, especially at that age, I would like, the more they eat, the better, because they have a
know.
body, you know, they need to grow.
Well, and that
it.
was like the main, I restricted as a child. I was very restrictive. It was very hard. I had a very rigid of what I like to eat. And that's what my favorite rule I think now about living in recovery is, I have no rules. There are no
I
good
love
foods.
that.
There are no bad foods. Like
Just
when I leave here, I'll probably go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac. I'm excited. You know, I don't set those rules for myself
Yes.
anymore. Life is too short. You know, it's
Exactly.
too short,
Yeah,
and
this-
we're not
We're not guaranteed
Tomorrow,
tomorrow.
we're
all we
not.
have is
Absolutely.
yesterday's gone. Tomorrow we're not guaranteed. All we
Right.
have is now. And I used to be a model, and I remember I never think God had an eating disorder. That's why it's like, but I used to restrict myself and I would gain weight from water, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then once I
Well,
had
do you know why your body does that?
no.
So when
Okay, now I'm
but
like
I can
learning
give you,
something.
but-
I would say this to people. People
Yeah.
are like, you are crazy.
so-
How can you gain weight from water?
Yes, well, and it's not necessarily gaining weight from water, right?
Yes.
But what it is when someone uses the behavior of restriction and they are stuck in the habit of restricting, right? And it's something that they're doing every day. What our body does is it freaks out and it goes, "Oh my gosh, you know, they're eating once a day. It's the one time they're going to eat."
Yes.
Like your body needs these nutrients. Like to eat is a gift, you know? And
Yeah.
and so when we are not feeding our bodies and not nourishing ourselves, you know, it can go definitely haywire, you know?
No, and it's once I was married and I had kids, and I realized that, you know what, it's like, I'm a mom now, who cares? And this is where now I have the same body as I had at 19, and I eat everything I want. I don't restrict. I know that certain things, for me, it's just eating until I'm full. I don't overeat. I eat I love bread. You know,
So
it's like-
intuitive eating.
It's
you-
just intuitive eating,
Yes.
and I love going to sleep like feeling light. So I never have big meal before I go to sleep. There's certain things, and you know, honestly, it's
Well,
like
these are
I
things that you were raised with, I'm sure, too, right? These are certain rules and
You
that,
know,
that
the
you
thing
almost-
is, because I was raised Russian, like Russian people love to eat.
Yes.
And I mean, it was never like, okay, you have to eat more and more and more and more. You know, like my ex-husband's Puerto Rican. I think in their culture, you eat a lot.
Yes.
That's their culture. They
Yeah.
love it. In my culture, we do eat, but
well, me
not.
too. I'm half Italian and I'm half West African, so it's definitely an interesting mix too. So cultural culture definitely has a huge part in eating disorders, believe it or not, too, because some of the things that we are raised believing necessarily aren't the facts. They're more of perceptions of what our family and those before us have told us to
Yeah.
believe, and you know.
So how did you actually recover from eating disorder? Or
Absolutely.
what
Recovery.
happened, changed in your
Yes.
mind that you're like, you know what, I don't want to live this life.
Yeah. So it was difficult because I was in and out of treatment. I went to treatment 8 different times.
Okay, so there is a treatment for eating
Treatment
disorder.
centers. Absolutely.
Okay, so what is it exactly an eating disorder treatment?
Eating disorder treatment is a life-changing experience. It's something that not all of Americans are lucky enough to have access to, which is why it's so important that, you know, with NEDA, like, it's important what we do, you know, raising awareness and connecting those in need to resources.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know there is such a thing like.
Oh my
so
gosh.
it's, an eating disorder center rehab.
Oh my gosh, of course. It's similar to, in the way that and there's different levels of care. And with eating disorder treatment, now I would go to the residential unit where I had to live on, you know, the hospital grounds. And I was there for about 3 months.
3 months.
Yes, and so
Wow.
the
because
repeating
it has
process.
to be part of your routine, and
Yeah.
I guess they changing the.
They pretty much strip
Break the
you of
habits.
every single behavior chain, which I loved. It was definitely intense, you know, at first, and there are rules, and all, you know, treatment centers are different, of course, but
like
recovery.
how your day would look like. Tell me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
really
okay,
curious.
yeah,
Like,
sure.
what do they actually do?
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, if they getting you off the drugs, they just cut you cold. I
Yes,
would imagine.
of
Like,
course.
this is you still have to
Well,
eat.
so
but
y-
a lot of times you're not allowing yourself to eat the foods they give you, right?
Yeah. Yes, and so we meet with a dietitian. That's one of the first
Okay.
things we do when you check into a rehab center, and they come up with a game plan, and it's called a meal plan. And for example, for me, I was struggling with keeping weight on, and I was malnourished and underweight. So my meal plan consisted of eating 8 times a day. So I would wake up in the morning. They would wake us up at 6 a.m. and we would do our morning group, and that would just be a therapeutic group where we would just let everyone know how we're doing. We would do our weights and vitals, and then we would eat our breakfast. A therapeutic group where we would just let everyone know how we're doing. We would do our weights and vitals, and then we would eat our breakfast. After breakfast,
Did you have a problem eating breakfast, or there were?
Oh, of course. Well, you have
or
to
you
think.
had to fight yourself. Like,
Oh,
hey,
of course.
I have
It's a
to
fight every single day, and
Okay.
some days it's harder
Because
than
that's why
others.
I think a lot of people don't understand that it's not just like, oh, okay, you're under malnutrition
Yeah,
and your weight
just
is
eat.
under.
You know,
Just
those kinds
eat.
of
A lot
things can be more
yes,
damaging
because
than
a lot
good.
of people don't understand it's a fight in your head that you see the meal, but you're not allowing yourself to eat it. And this is where the mental part comes in,
Oh,
because it's
absolutely.
not just the food. That's how I didn't realize, like, but it's just the food.
To
like,
me,
that's
eating
why I'm
disorders
like,
are more mental disorders than even
Yes.
physical. I think physical is more of a reaction to the action
Yes,
of
like
what's
binging
going on.
is the reaction.
Right,
but
exactly.
allowing yourself to eat, because I know a lot of you guys count calories, or
Of course,
people with
that's
eating
one of
disorders
that's definitely a
count
telltale
calories.
sign too. Signs that you know a loved one is struggling with eating disorder.
Yeah.
I would say changes, fluctuation in weight. We also would get a fur on our, like people who are underweight, we get a hair almost, and it's white, and that's to keep our body warm because.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I know that
So with me,
a
like,
lot of people, they freeze all the time.
yeah, so like one of the complications with me and my recovery was definitely my organs. I would go into the beginning stages of multi-organ failure.
Wow.
Almost every single time I went into treatment, that's pretty much what got me in there in the first place. Yeah, where my lab work, my kidney, my liver,
Wow.
those were the things that were taking the most damage, without a doubt. I lost my hair fell out. I did grow almost like a fur on me. But the saddest part is that everyone watched me, slowly just, go off into the abyss. And because no one had information as what an eating disorder is, and because there was no knowledge, there was
Your
no one ready to
parents, you're
help
saying
me.
They had that, but
they
were
didn't
not.
know.
They were not aware that
They were not
that's-
aware. They were not
So
aware.
you were
I actually
watching
got
this-
my mom into treatment.
Really?
Yeah, about 6 years after I first went into treatment, I got my
So
mom into
she
treatment.
had it as an adult.
Yes,
So
yeah.
you've been watching her since you were born, basically. That
Well, yes. So
relationship with food.
Oh, absolutely. It's learned behavior, without a doubt. Most of my behaviors, we had rules like the kitchen closed after 6 p.m. There was no dirtying dishes. There was no getting a snack. There was, so there were little things that necessarily that people wouldn't pick up on that
Yes.
would trigger an eating disorder. But without a doubt, yeah, it definitely a lot of the way that I was brought up and the TV and the media that I watched, absolutely, the social aspects of it played a part in my eating disorder. But recovery, it's absolutely possible. But I do have to tell you that it is not linear for everyone. It isn't, I'm going to go into treatment and I'm going to get better. Relapse is inevitable.
So they're trying to break the habit
Absolutely.
and how psychologically you look at food, and that food is, something you shouldn't be afraid of.
Oh,
right?
of course.
And I know that with eating disorder, there's so many. I mean, I guess you get very depressed. So a lot of doctors put you on
Yeah.
antidepressant medicine,
And that's not always, and it isn't always the case. So the first time I went into treatment, I went the holistic route. I said no medication. And then the second time I went into treatment, no medication. And what worked for me doesn't always necessarily
Yes.
work for everyone, and I want to stress that definitely.
Yes.
What
But I
ended
guess
up working
I'm
for me?
connecting this because
Yeah.
you said that eating disorder associates a lot with drug abuse, and
Oh,
I guess this
absolutely.
is where it starts with, because you are depressed, you have in a full
Oh, of course.
and you start taking things to make you feel better, and I guess after a while those things don't work and you want a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah, it's to numb things that are going on necessarily, and that's where, because with me, I struggle with anorexia. I restrict, I binge, and I purge. I also have anxiety and depression and post-traumatic stress syndrome. So, disorder, I'm sorry, PTSD, basically.
Yeah.
So those things actually make up the eating disorder, and the eating disorder is how I handle and react to life and everything that I'm going through. So some days I'll be great, and now I live a recovered life. I've been in recovery for a solid 6 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
that's breakfast, that's
this
lunch, that's dinner, and that's 3 snacks in between.
Do you have sometimes like those still thoughts?
Oh, of
like,
course, of
looking at meal,
course.
I'm like, no, I'm not gonna eat this because it has
Of
so many calories.
course.
Or you want to purge or do anything
Yeah,
else.
of course. And in certain situations, like for example, coming here to talk to you today, I was really nervous. I wanted to restrict. But you know what I did? I was late seeing you today because I actually stopped at Wendy's and
my
I
God,
got
I'm so
2
happy.
burgers.
I love
yeah,
that.
I did. I'm like, you know what? Food is first. I was like,
Yes.
taking care of myself is always important, and so.
We should all learn that taking care
Yeah.
of us is very important.
Of course.
And especially,
Especially
you don't
those
want,
who
it's a
give back.
relationship for you with food. So
Yes,
you want to keep that
absolutely.
relationship on a good
Yes,
terms. And-
absolutely. And there was so many things growing up that I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't do any seafood. I wouldn't do any kind of food that was, like from Asia. I did no sauce. I did no butter. I had all of these restrictions. Now I enjoy all of those things. I love them so much, and I'm so grateful for them, honestly. But with recovery, it isn't linear. So there was a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of relapses. And a relapse can look anywhere from one day to, your life flopping right back to exactly what it was into those behavior patterns. Because if you, like for someone like me, I grew up with these behavior patterns. So breaking those patterns are absolutely very difficult to do. And it isn't going to be an overnight thing. And that's why recovery isn't necessarily linear, and why every case is different, because every person is different and everyone's story is different. And that's why my story is unique, because I feel like I speak for, I guess I would say like the marginalized people that you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, he struggles with an eating disorder, I am, well, for example, the LGBT community. 80% of the LGBT community actually that they've done research shows that 80% of the LGBT community is actually unsatisfied with their body.
Wow.
Now that's either size.
This is where it starts with.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. And that's what we're really focusing on is, those who can't speak for themselves right now. And that's why I dedicated my career. I did music my whole life.
How did you actually started with them? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I actually was a guest speaker. They asked me to guest speak, and I performed. And then I got hooked. I got hooked on giving back, and it gave me purpose.
Yes.
Everything that I went through, all of the struggle I went through was all for a reason. It brought me right here to today.
And I feel like a lot of times when you go through something, it's actually healing to
Absolutely.
go and give back, because it's a reminder how
Every
far
single
you
day.
overcame, and that you now on the other side, and you know more than anybody else how, the struggles you go through, because a lot of people
Absolutely.
really don't understand what it is to look at something and say, I cannot have this. It's
Absolutely.
like that fight inside that you would never even think about. That's why
Absolutely.
it's such a fascinating thing to me, because to me food is nothing, but I've seen people who struggle with this, and I see them literally being so anxious, and you can see the mood changes,
absolutely.
how angry they become,
Or
and
even
it's-
going to the grocery market and going shopping, food
restaurants,
shopping.
restaurants,
Oh,
you
those
know,
used to be
if-
the worst for me. They used to
Exactly,
stress me out. Or
there's
cookouts, groceries.
cookouts, or planning
Yes.
like, okay, what I'm gonna eat with my friends. It's like their life changes from just
Well, and
enjoying
it does
things.
alter, because you get to the point where it takes, like, in eating disorders hold you back. They hijack your life. They take over
Yes.
full control of your life, and they tell you pretty much it runs your life. So you miss out on things. How many events I've missed out, how many, gatherings with friends I've missed out on based off of my health. There was a point when I was in the band, when I was struggling with my eating disorder so bad, I would be in the hospital, doing all these tests, and then I would have to check myself out, go and perform, and then come and check myself right back into the hospital after. So it was one of those things where, and doctors didn't know. They had no idea what was going on. They thought that I had IBS, that I had irritable bowel syndrome, and that there was, some kind of digestive issue. And what it was I was a male struggling with an eating disorder, and I was hiding it so well that I didn't even know I had one.
Wow. So for people or adults or parents or anybody, what would you say the signs to watch out, especially in your teens or children,
Absolutely.
that will clue in there's something going on?
So any kind of dieting, no,
yeah,
I
a
don't want to say all
7-year-old should
diets.
not be saying, I want ice cream. They should be like, I want too.
And counting calories
Yes.
is really, I guess I would say to me, it's not necessary. Raising children to count calories is almost a way of controlling what they're eating and what they're not. And you're kind of explaining to them.
I noticed that.
Yeah, you're explaining
now,
to them. Yeah.
I start noticing that some of my friends, the moms, or, like in my case, it's the
They
mom.
struggle with disordered eating too.
They struggle, and then I start noticing these little things, like when they will tell their kids, oh, don't eat this, you shouldn't be this, it's a wasted calories. And because in my house, I always believed, even a lot of parents will say I'm so wrong, I let my kids whatever they want, chocolate, soda.
Yes.
You know what you want, and my kids never really indulge into
Absolutely.
anything because it's always there. But I see when their friends come to my house, they go to the pantry and they start eating everything. And I tell my kids, look how embarrassing it looks.
Yeah.
It's like they haven't eaten, but it's because they're deprived from it. And I believe in educating what it
Absolutely.
can cause, what's the things, but say no. For what reason? It's like, yes, I'm in charge of you, but I'm also in charge as an adult and a parent to educate you what comes with it.
Yes,
but
and that's why
no.
Like, it's so important. Knowledge is power. It really is, and the power of our voice is the most powerful thing that we have. It genuinely is, and that's why I did go through a very, very rough recovery journey with my eating disorder. However, I came out on the other side. I found beauty in the darkness. Very, very rough recovery journey with my eating disorder. However, I came out on the other side. I found beauty in the darkness. I looked beyond the mirror. I weighed myself, beyond the scale and physically, and I weighed myself at what kind of human being I am, what I have to offer to this world, and how I can make this earth a better place while I'm here. And for my next generations, for my son and for his family and families to come, for me, that would be a huge victory, to see everybody. So I didn't get to tell you about this. NEDA, we have this really cool screening tool. And actually, it's been used over 1 million times. And it's helped over 1 million people throughout the US. And it's really quick and it's really cool because it connects you to, so you should try it. You should try it.
But what
later.
is
Yes.
it? Is it like
So-
a club for,
No,
or
so-
what is it? It's
Yeah,
educational?
so it's
Okay.
almost like a little.
Because I know you go to schools.
Yes.
To educate.
I do. I go
which
to
is
schools.
amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I feel like a lot of teenagers are afraid to tell their parents what's happening. That's what I wanted to ask
Well,
you.
because
like,
they don't really
okay,
understand it either, right?
like
and it's
what-
already really
yes.
confusing as to be a teenager as it is. Like,
But sometimes they do. But there's not every parent is acceptable of information because we as
course.
an adults, we always see our child as the most perfect one, and when we hear there's something wrong, we're like,
and what is perfect? Perfect isn't even real.
Exactly.
That's like one of the things
But-
they teach us too is
Yes.
perfection isn't real, and comparing ourselves to others is never a good thing.
Yes.
It's never good to compare ourselves.
No, you're so
We are
right
our
on
own
that.
people. We were born, like you look at the grass and you think about doing gymnastics in Russia. I look at the grass and I think of soccer, or something.
Yes.
And when I was a
Agree.
teenager, like we view life completely differently, and that's the beauty in being different,
Yeah.
in
No, that's
in
so
humanity. We view life completely differently, and what's more important to me is that, and NEDA obviously too, is that we bring everyone together and
I think it's
we're
a
all
society
equal.
right now, they love to standardize beauty. Instead of promoting that individuality is the most beautiful thing you can have, they actually put everybody, you know, it's like a filter on the app. Like, okay, everybody has this body, this color eyes, this hair. It's like, and that's what's in season right now, and I see it everywhere. That's what they're promoting instead of for young adults and go like, you know what? You guys all are beautiful, and you guys all have something inside that's, you know, it's your
irreplaceable.
life. Irreplaceable.
It's irreplaceable. It leaves a mark on this world forever.
Unfortunately, you know, they don't do it. And that's another topic. But back to those children who feel there's something wrong with them, and they are afraid to tell their parents where they can call, where they can find the support.
Well, so we have the coolest tool, and it's the NEDA screening tool. And like I was saying, it has been accessed by over 1 million people, have actually received resources from it. And it actually connects us. So it's a little brief survey that lets you know if you're at risk for an eating disorder, or if you're currently struggling with one. And then it goes one step further and connects you with any resources that you would possibly need. And say, you know, your child or someone you know, a loved one, is struggling with an eating disorder, you can go on the National Eating Disorder website.
Adults, or whatever age.
13 and up. It's recommended 13
up.
years old and up, to get accurate results. But it actually, it's funded by the Grace Holland. Sorry, I'm having a moment.
It's okay. We're all having a moment. Listen, this topic is like, oh my God.
And it's something I'm so passionate about, so I could talk until I'm blue in the face. Sorry. But yeah, so sorry.
That's fine. Okay, once you remember who started this amazing program, which we are so grateful, because the more resources and the more help, you know, this people can have, the better.
Oh, absolutely.
But so it's on the website.
The Grace Holland Resource Center.
Okay,
and they are incredible. If you are someone looking to if you notice that someone you love is maybe struggling and you're not even sure if they are or not, they will connect you to the resources. They will give you all the information you need.
Therapists or recovery centers,
yes,
or doctors,
of course. To dietitians, to therapists, to anyone that you need to help navigate recovery. I had a long journey for recovery to get to where I am today, and I could have never done it without NEDA's help, without a doubt. And I actually did. I accessed their resources when I was struggling the first time,
and
when I seeked treatment for the first time.
Or?
It's all free. It's all free.
This is amazing.
We just want to help everyone. We just want everyone.
Oh my God.
We just want everyone to know that they're beautiful.
Because, I mean, listen, therapists are not cheap. And having a dietitian and therapist and another therapist and going to the doctors. And that's where I feel like a lot of people don't just have the money for recovery.
Of course not. And so do you want to know how much I added up my recovery. Do you know how much my recovery costs in total? $810,000.
Oh my God. Does
to have me
covered
sitting
by insurance,
here.
By the way?
My insurance covered it, but that's what it costs to have me sitting here talking to you today.
I mean, I believe life has no value.
It doesn't.
No price.
You're right.
So
but that's what they put the value on it. That's the value. I'm like, I'm irreplaceable.
Well, it costs money to somebody.
Yes. But that is what it costs in our country.
People, you know, a lot of people don't have that. You know, they don't have the resources or the financial support to even go to the therapy. And a lot of kids I know, especially if they will tell their parents and they feel embarrassed and even ask for help or therapy, the parents can deny just because they don't have the needs the insurance doesn't cover. And these kids, you know, they're probably the ones who end up dying. And I know a lot of them commit suicide because I guess...
Well, there is a high probability. Well, there's a higher risk of the rate of suicide, absolutely, with people who struggle with eating disorders.
If you struggle with something for 10 years, I mean, that's a long time. This is not even like being sick and getting out of the hospital in a year. This is 10 years of your life.
It was all I knew,
And I know most people who struggle with this, it took them very long time.
Yeah.
It's like 5-6 years. And I guess because first you're in denial, you just
Of
go with
course.
it, right? Then it's not that easy to fix. There's
It's
no
not, well, because you have to think, if I lived 21 years not using any eating disorder behavior or using eating disorder behaviors, you have to think, well, if it didn't just happen overnight, how can I
Yes.
fix it overnight?
Yes.
But with, believe it or not, family and friends are so vital to recovery because they're the ones you never point, you don't judge the person that you think is struggling with an eating disorder. First, you look up information, you educate yourself. That's the
Yes.
first thing I recommend for anyone that is trying to speak to someone or bring up a concern of disordered eating, or even if they want to have an intervention. I think using like the wording is everything. It's so vital because certain things can offend or actually do more damage than good in such vital moments like recovery.
What do you think gives hope about the future treatments or recovery? Do you think there's something they're working on, like a magic, not pill, but like stem cells that can, like help you with this recovery process, or the speed of it, instead of being at 10 years, it can be just 5?
Well, so unfortunately, research is, actually on the decline for eating disorders, which it should be the complete opposite. Yeah, but unfortunately, it's one of those things that is kind of taboo that people don't feel 100% comfortable talking about because they don't fully understand, and people don't always want to talk about things they don't understand.
Yeah.
And
No, that's so true.
And so with eating disorders, the future for me, it's bright because
Yes.
I know that we are going to, well, with NEDA, my goal has always been to get on the front lines, to go to the people who need us the most. So that's why we go to schools and we educate students. That's why we go to LGBTQ community pride events, and I host tables and I just pass out information and flyers and just get to know people. Getting to know the people that I'm helping,
Yeah.
that, like, to me, hope for eating disorders is that one day we are all able to receive the same education about eating disorders. And in a dream world, I would love for everyone to have to take the NEDA screening tool just once in their life, maybe like a driver's license when you're 16, and just to see if you're ever at risk, because
Well, it should be, okay, since you're saying it's such an easy tool, I would suggest every pediatrician, when the kids come and the parents and the kids fill out that form, they can fill out the same form to see if a child, because I know with my kids, I go every year to pediatrician for their checkup. It should be a form provided to a child that they can fill it out and see, especially the doctor, if they have any concerns about eating disorder or already struggling with it. Wouldn't that be helpful?
Absolutely. Well, think about oh my God,
I'm
the
all
time
about
and all the memory.
I'm all about changing the beliefs and the structures.
Absolutely.
So we are going to actually work on that.
We should.
The other question I want you to ask, can the schools actually call NEDA and ask somebody to come and educate their students? Because
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's also very helpful for schools to know.
Oh my
because
gosh,
a lot of
yes.
them have no idea how it works.
Yes.
And, like, who do they call? How does it happen? So, okay, the schools in...
Yes.
And you guys are in every state, correct?
We are a national-wide
Okay, so
nonprofit
NEDA is a
organization.
national-wide organization, and all the schools can contact them and ask for their representative to come and educate children, adults, their parents, and of course,
Absolutely.
all the doctors. There should be mandatory form
We
to
do.
fill out.
We
for
actually go to
kids.
doctors' offices and we go to
And
hospitals
I
and teach
love
them,
that.
colleges.
Oh my God, that's going to be on
Absolutely.
my mission, because I mean, with my daughter going through her own adrenal tumor, I know everybody at
course.
CHOC, I'll be calling you to put that form in every doctor's office.
love it.
So we can cure more kids, teens, adults, whoever
Yes.
needs help. And, Danny, thank you so much. It was
It's been
definitely
such
such
an
a
honor.
passionate,
Yes, I know.
conversation, just because there's so many people don't know what it is and how eating disorder affects mental health. And I was myself, I didn't know that how it impacts people and how long the recovery is and how hard it is to be diagnosed.
Well, one last fact I want to tell you.
I want to know it all.
With anorexia nervosa, it takes, an average, research says, about 2.5 to 3 years for someone to seek treatment. And with binge eating disorder, the most common time frame for someone to seek treatment is actually 7 years.
Wow.
6 to almost 7 years, yeah.
Okay, we're going to change that. We're going to
We
start
are.
changing things,
Yes.
and we're going to make everything a little bit faster and a little bit better. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Danny. You've been watching
Keni,
In
it was
Heels
such a
with Keni
pleasure. It was so
Silva.
nice meeting you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Seriously,
Thank you so
you're
much.
an angel.
Oh,
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you.
Thank you.